So, Kenwood family, happy Wednesday. As always, I am excited to be with you for the midweek manna that we do here at Kenwood, our weekly Bible study. And as you know, in the month of August, we celebrate Black August, where we are blessed to have various speakers and teachers and presenters engage us throughout this entire month. And we learn from them, we engage with them, and we share in community with them. We are in week 3 of Black August 2025, and we have been blessed so far to hear from Reverend Sierra Bates Chamberlain, and then last week, Reverend Dr. Eric Gill, and then tonight we're going to hear from Miss Amari J. Fennoy of the NAACP. Before I introduce her and we get started, I want to go into a quick word of prayer. Lord, we thank you that we are in this space and in this place tonight virtually to be a part of kindred and beloved community, committing ourselves to growing in you, to growing with one another, and being the necessary people, the necessary disciples that we are to be in this present time and in this present age. Open our hearts and our ears and our spirits to be receptive of what is shared today and possibly how we may be convicted, but most of all compelled to go forward in the work. In Christ's name we do pray. Amen. All right, y'all. I'm excited tonight for a few reasons. One, uh I've seen Amari grow in this work that she has been doing, that she began as a college student at Spelman College, leading the Spelman chapter of the NAACP, while I had the privilege of serving as the state president of the Georgia NAACP Youth and College Division. And then when that tenure ended for me, Amari stepped in and served as the state president. Then she went to the national office and served the Youth and College Division. Then she moved on up and served the other side of the organization. And now she serves as the national director for mobilization of the national NAACP. Her previous role was national training and programs manager for Youth and College Division. She served and supported 700 NAACP youth and college units in the fight for human and civil rights. And Amari joined the NAACP, as I said, as a student leader with 8 years of experience in grassroots organizing and training on the state and regional levels. If I can toot a horn for a second. When I was in seminary, Amari was at Spelman, 2018, I believe it was. We were in midterm elections, and we were trying to figure out a strategy as voting rights and access to the ballot box was being stripped for students throughout the state of Georgia. And Amari, as the president of Spelman College, did just a tremendous job of making sure that people had what they needed, but also that people were placed at the forefront. Specifically, college students at Spelman, Morehouse, and Clark Atlanta, as well as Agnes Scott. And they led a few rallies at Spelman, a few rallies at Morehouse, to the point John Lewis came to campus to make sure these students had everything they needed to vote in 2018. What I can't forget is she was a speaker during the Women's March was that the same year or the next year?
19. That was 2019.
2019. She was a speaker at the Women's March. So she's true to this. She's been doing it. I'm proud. I brag because I was one that identified this brilliant talent in the state of Georgia. But she's her own woman. She's doing it her way. And we are going to be blessed tonight, Kenwood, by Amari. Those watching on Facebook, I encourage you to share so that others can be a part of this and ask questions tonight. This is a different form of Black August for us tonight because we are aware of the crisis going on in our country, specific to Texas, specific to DC, as well as how we'll have a ripple effect of everything that we even experience here in Chicago, in the state of Illinois. So pay attention tonight, share this with somebody, and ask questions. All right, Amari, it's all in your hands.
So thank you, Jamar, for one, for having me on tonight. Literally did see me at Spelman freshman year all the way now. We won't say how many years that has been, but it's been quite some time since then. So I do appreciate you having me on tonight. Good evening, everyone. So as Jamar said, this portion of the presentation will be slightly different. I don't have a physical presentation, but I do want to have dialogue. And I know Jamar is going to pop back in for us to, talk through some things when it comes to Texas, when it comes to DC, what's forthcoming for 2026, which Chicago is going to be extremely important within that due to the fact there is 116 House seats that will be up for 2026 in Chicago and 39 Senate seats. When we talk a little bit about what it looks like now, especially looking at the tragic news of this evening when we found out that has passed their redistricting maps, we understand that we must start educating individuals on healthcare, education, DEI. We must actually have breakdowns and conversations. We have to go back to the barbershops. We need our pastors. We need our teachers. We need individuals to actually have conversations about how these things impact individuals, from SNAP benefits to Pell Grants for our college students. College affordability is also under attack. There are constant conversations about these issues, but we want to make sure that they're drilling down to the local levels to make sure that individuals actually understand how it has been impacted. We know that the big ugly bill has already passed. So we know that some of those individuals are now currently missing Medicaid. We know individuals are they're losing Medicaid. They're losing their benefits that they previously had. Insulin now goes no longer from $35 a month to now 500, depending upon how many shots you need for insulin. We need to have these conversations because it mostly impacts individuals that look like you and I. And I want to make sure that we are starting back at the root of the social movement, of the civil rights movement, and that's at the churches, and having these conversations with congregations, because the churches, pastors have been at the forefront of helping us move individuals to the polls, but also have these conversations about the issues that are currently going on within our communities. So I'm going to drop some information into the chat. And I know this is going to be on Facebook, so I'll go back to the video and make sure we drop those there as well. But we want to push individuals to have conversations and have town halls. You don't have to be an ACP member to have a town hall, but we do want you to have conversations about what is going on in terms of healthcare, education, in terms of just tax, the budget cuts, inflation. I know everyone is feeling it. Eggs should not be $5, $10, but they are. So those conversations all trickle down to who's in office and what information is moving forward. So we want to make sure that there is no mis and disinformation in what we're passing forward. So I will drop that in the chat, and then I'll kick it to you, Jamar, to start, with the questions, and some dialogue on what exactly we are doing to move forward. Jamar.
So let's do this, Amari. Can you share, um, trying to think of like the first question I want to ask. Can you share the current state of DC so that people in Chicago and then those watching around the country can really understand what does it mean to see the National Guard and the military take the streets of the United States Capitol?
So if so, live in the DC area, of course. When the official order was put out, I was actually in Illinois, where I'm from East St. Louis, so from the southern part of Illinois. When I flew in, I didn't recognize DC. There were National Guards in Black communities. They were addressing in a manner that just things that just didn't happen in DC. The false narrative around DC as of right now is that it's just crime stricken. There were two incidents that occurred. One with the Doge employee who was unfortunately killed, and another with the congressional intern who also it was killed. But the thing is, these were two isolated incidents that should have never been pushed to a national narrative as if DC is not a safe city. DC is at an all-time low for crime of 25 years. Meaning that these high crime rates that we're hearing, that is not the truth. If you walk out into DC, it's not a war zone. Now it is, because there's National Guard at parks, there's National Guards at restaurants, they're in community, they're at schools. ICE is also being pushed out. Yesterday, I was in the near the DC office, and I watched a man who was in his tent being dragged by police officers and some other individuals, and they literally put him and the tent in the trash can. That is not how you treat individuals. So the conversation is that these things are being done to clean up the streets. They don't want to see any more individuals who don't have a home on the streets. They don't want to see any crime. That has not been the narrative before January 20th. So why is it the narrative now? Because that is not DC. I mean, we know that this is going to happen to other cities because he said things to the Baltimore mayor. You know, there's things been said to the Chicago mayor. We know that there's been threats basically on cities that are governed by Black mayors, and that is at no coincidence. Baltimore itself, under Mayor Brandon, I'm losing his last name, but he is an amazing mayor. First of all, if you've ever been to Baltimore, not only does he have programs for youth in the summertime to where they have something to do all day. It's time for them to go home. He has placed different systems in to ensure that individuals are not just dilly-dallying outside. He also creates concerts that are free of charge to his community members. So he is actually putting in place what seems like community and what community should actually look like versus kicking individuals out of the city who are already displaced and have nowhere else to go. He has actually provided them with that resource. He has churches who are involved. He has schools that are involved. It's a true sense of community when you walk to Baltimore. Yes, there are some concerns, but they're being addressed, and the numbers are decreasing because community is involved, and there's actually a sense of community. Individuals know who their community members are. They know who in the neighborhoods. They know everyone's name. It's because he's building a system of trust for the city, and that is exactly how you ensure that crime goes down. How do you ensure that crime goes up is you actually throw in individuals who are agitating individuals within the city. There is no reason I should walk down 8th Street and all of a sudden the National Guard is walking up to me and asking questions. That is not how we should be, walking and navigating. That's the last thing you would think that would happen in the nation's capital, but it is. Individuals in uniform are up and down the streets. It feels as if there's a tense, eerie feeling over DC at the moment. Even I just saw an article where DoorDash has an increase in orders because individuals don't want to go outside. That was not the narrative before the National Guard was deployed into DC. If you've ever been to DC, there are restaurants outside, people are in the parks. It's a very lively area. No matter where you are, there are people outside, there's community. And as if now there is this eerie feeling that individuals don't want to get involved, they don't want to go outside. And also, we have to understand that there is also an attack on DC overall. They want to federalize DC. And what does that mean? DC is currently under the home rule, where that means that DC is not a state, but it governs itself. So, in a sense, our mayor is our governor. We have an attorney general, we have a city council. Those individuals are who represent DC and who bring forth policy changes, who represent the communities within this. And as of right now, as DC is fighting for statehood and has fought for statehood for years, they are being constantly denied because there's a control over DC and nonpartisan, but we're not blind in understanding that if DC was a state, it would be blue. If you know DC is Chocolate City for a reason, it's progressive. So let me not say blue, it's progressive. So the thing is, they want to ensure that that does not move forth. And there's a constant hold on the city when it comes to that in that sense. But also, we it's that piece, and it's also, if you've seen the disgusting pictures of those young men in handcuffs because of charges, when we have a president who has 34 felonies in the White House, was just disheartening. But also, they did nothing. There was no crimes done within it. They may have possessed something, but there was no activity going on at that time. So to basically push a narrative on communities, but also to use their private information and post them on social media in that way. Since when has the commander chief of the United States ever blasted individuals in that disgusting manner? But also, since when have we ever promoted things like ICE because we want to take people out the country? I thought this was the melting pot. I thought all individuals came here for a different way in life. And we've just seen overall, time after time after time, that that's not the case for individuals who are, for Black and brown communities.
Yeah. Kenwood, I want to make this connection as we get ready to continue this conversation. Sunday, the last two Sunday, we've talked about Acts chapter 4, when after Peter and John have been with this uh, man who they gave the name of Jesus to. And because they gave this man the name of Jesus, they were penalized, they were terrorized by the state, but also by the church, who was in cahoots, in collusion with the government, with the Roman government. They go before this council of Annas and Caiaphas and John and Alexander and the elders and the scribes and the rulers, all in contention, all upset, all distressed, because the empire is being upended by this progressive Jesus movement. And what we can say, y'all, this is the greatest form of backlash, if you will, by white conservatism, white evangelical Christians, white nationalism, white Christian nationalism that we've seen since Jim Crow. This is Jim Crow 2.0, y'all. This is the creation of a neo-Confederacy. Now, I want to shift us because for a second, Amari has set the backdrop of what the nation's capital looks like, but she's also named how the president has called out black cities and black mayors. So Baltimore has been called out, Chicago has been called out because we are led by black mayors and predominantly Democratic city councils. Now, what we also have to pay attention to is the state of Texas that Amari hinted to at the very beginning. We saw what they were doing to Representative Collier by holding her hostage in the state house of Texas for 2 days. She could not leave. This morning, they went back into session, and then this evening, they voted these maps through. Amari, can you provide for us or help us understand? I think there are 30 members of the Congressional Black Caucus at this current moment, or 32, somewhere around there. Four of those districts are in Texas. And if I'm not mistaken, the current map that they are drawing would eliminate three of those districts to one consolidated district. So those four representatives are basically fighting for one seat. Can you help us in Chicago, us in Illinois? We have Kenwood family who also don't live in Chicago. They live in South Carolina. They live in Georgia. They live in North Carolina. I think we have some who are on in Michigan. Can you help us understand what it means for this type of redistricting and gerrymandering to be happening, and the impact that it will have on not just Texas, but potentially our national politics?
So let's just take a second to see who holds those seats. Jasmine Crockett is one of them. And I want to say, I could be wrong. I want to say Al Green is also one of them. So that's two black representatives. And then the third seat was vacant because, unfortunately, the death of Representative Sheila Jackson Lee. So those were three seats held by three black leaders whose ideologies do not match the current governor of Texas, but also the president. So essentially, Texas was asked to basically alter the maps to ensure that they won five seats. Again, nonpartisan, but understanding the dynamics, it is red and blue in this situation. They wanted to ensure that there were those three black vocal representatives, because if you've seen, Jasmine Crockett has been very vocal in what's currently going on. And we also saw that Al Green, Representative Al Green, also stood in front of Congress, in front of his colleagues, and was basically removed from that area because he was speaking up and he was speaking his voice. He's also a former NAACPer, so he's no stranger to civil rights and getting into some good trouble. But essentially, the goal is to wipe seats around the Houston area, which is a predominantly black area. And the thing about this is that gives Republicans an edge for 2025, I mean 2026, when it comes to the midterm election that's going to happen, I want in November of 2026. The conflict is one, forgetting party, black voices are being lost with those three seats. And they're being muted. And we currently see that there is an increase of trying to mute black voices, especially those in leadership. And then two, um, there is now, like you said, there's now three individuals fighting for a seat, but there's also a Republican who's historically won some of those areas, who has already won over some of his constituents who can overpower those seats. So we're there is a power shift and a power dynamic that is currently going on there, but ultimately it was put into place by the president after his conversations saying that this needs to happen. Speaking to Representative Collier, who was literally locked in the chambers for what, 2 nights, one night, regardless, any night, because she would not sign a permission slip saying that she would be followed around by guards because it is their jurisdiction. The capital is the Texas Capitol is their jurisdiction. Where they and then we had four individuals who were standing with her, and the police also removed them from peacefully protesting in that space. What it says is our voices are constantly being muted because the more we tell the narrative and more we actually talk about what's actually happening, the more they're going to try to find ways to constantly suppress and push. And that means even cheating. That means even pushing and altering things because at this point, the gloves are off. Fighting isn't fair. Now they have to steal seats to ensure that he remains or whatever is going to happen because he can't run for a third term. So not quite sure what the plan is there, but I don't think he ever plans on really leaving that seat. And that's also another problem for us. But what we also will see in 2026, now that that individuals have gained five more seats, we're going to see more things like the big ugly bill that just passed that took away SNAP and Medicaid, but we're going to now see it more so on the local levels as well. We're going to see these things kind of trickle down to where individuals won't have resources. The Department of Education may actually be wiped. Financial support is going to be, obsolete. Social Security is running out. So we will start to see how things kind of really impact us if we don't get out to vote for 2026. There are 95 million individuals who chose not to vote last year. Those 94 million individuals could really shift and change the narrative. So the conflict is we have to start being more vocal and actually tell the truth and start storytelling about what is actually going on because there's a lot of false information that's also countering it. I deleted Twitter or X or whatever it is because I got tired of seeing every 5 minutes Elon, Trump, like it just got ridiculous because the information was also false. And I think the most recent thing is his uncle helped. It's just nothing is true because we have fact checked. Even when it comes to the debates, there are fact checks. But the conflict is these false narratives will continue to move forward. And individuals will continuously be hurt by terrible passage of terrible bills if we do not get out to vote for 2026. There are currently going to be 400, and I'm gonna make sure I got this right. There are going to be 435 House seats open for 2026. That means all of Illinois' House is being you have to vote for the entire House for Illinois. That whole cabinet has to be put back in. But also within other states, there's 435 total seats when it comes to House of Representatives. That means that we have the power to ensure that progressive individuals who actually believe in healthcare, who believe that individuals should have those resources to get into office if we actually cast our ballot in November. But the conflict is we have to ensure that we're not doing electoral organizing, but we're doing relational organizing. What is relational organizing? I'm actually having conversations with the congregation like this to where we're talking about what the issues are and how they impact individuals, but mostly I'm making sure that the information is granular so individuals are actually able to digest it. We keep saying the high level things, or we're not really breaking down what is the actual connection to this and how does this truly impact individuals. We have to bring that back down to a level to where we're actually having conversations. It was interesting during the last year, everyone decided that all of a sudden barbershops and beauty shops were the amazing hub for communication, as if we did not already know that. Individuals decided that churches were already a hub of information, which we did not already know. Like we knew these things. Congregations up to 5,000 people, you can reach that individuals to make sure that they know what's going on. Barbershops, some people just go for the conversation. Beauty shops, some people just go for the conversation. I know people who that's where they get their news from. But the important thing is we have to ensure that those conversations are being had at the coffee shops. We have to break this elitist form of organizing to where that we miss the individual we actually need to talk to. I don't need to go to a room of individuals who are already involved in politics. I don't need those individuals to already be involved in the conversation about education. I need community members whose schools are not receiving funding, or schools. I need those parents in the room to have a conversation. I need those individuals who are losing their Medicaid to be in the conversation. So we need to push individuals to understand how important 2026 is, because these conversations start now and not in October of next year, not in April of next year. They actually start today, August 20th of 2025, to make sure that individuals are actually understanding what needs to happen for 2026. And on top of the 435 House seats, we have 33 Senate seats. Why is that important? Who breaks the ties on votes when it comes to the Senate? The Vice President of the United States. So we need to ensure that progressive individuals are in those seats, so we don't rely on that vote for us to actually have legislation that is reflection of what we need. On the House side, we need a speaker that actually reflects community and not someone who's going to block conversations or block truth from actually occurring within the House. Those are things that are at risk. It's not just the seats that are at risk, it's also the control of the conversations, that ensuring that government actually reflects the people and not billionaires, not their data centers, and not their individuals to make sure they're continuously getting rich. This is not a play for individuals to receive millions of dollars. This is our livelihood. This is how we literally navigate every day.
Yeah. If you all are watching on Facebook, please share this conversation. It's absolutely critical. I see one of your fellow NAACP colleagues, Couture, is watching us on Facebook. Couture, it's good to see you. Let me All right, Kenwood, let me put this back in perspective as what we've been doing over the last couple of weeks at church. Remember Acts chapter 3, y'all, the man sitting outside the temple gate. He's paralyzed. He's been a paralytic his whole life. He has been placed there by people to be a beggar. And these elitist folk, Amari has called us out, us elitist folk who are already in the house. We're already in the church, already in the institutions. We understand this, how it's supposed to operate. They pass him by and say, that person is not my problem. Yes, that person is your problem because they do not have access to what makes them whole. And that is what we are facing today. We have people sitting outside of the gates. And now the reality is we are the people that are sitting outside of the gates who, while we may be aware of some of the things that are going on, we are not actually fully and consciously paying attention to the day-to-day activities that is going on. There is you can Google it. I don't have the link at the moment, the Project 2025 tracker that shows you just how far along they are in this agenda for Project 2025. I think they are somewhere around 47 to 48% of the way of implementing everything that they want to do with Project 2025. And the first thing starts with destabilizing the federal government. And that is what Amari is speaking to at this moment. Now, I want to shift into something that I've been engaging in colleagues with, but primarily my grandparents. So my grandparents are proud baby boomers, unapologetic about what they've survived, what they've seen, what they've witnessed, what they've sacrificed. And I asked my grandmother about 2 months ago, what is the difference between their generation and my generation? Didn't even get to my parents and Gen X. I said, what is the difference between millennials and boomers? And the first thing my grandmother says is, "Y'all are so smart that you're stupid." That was the very first thing she said. Y'all are so smart that you're stupid." And this is what she meant by that, which is one of the most detrimental things that integration possibly did to young Black minds at the time was the mastering of assimilation. And because there was a mastering of assimilation, there was this false assumption that white people saw you as their equal, or better yet, saw you as human, and that somehow these policies and these practices would just immerse you into the big American picture. And the reality is that is not true. She then went on to say, maybe we spoiled our children too much with the illusion of America, which was to say, Just because you can go to Clemson, just because you can go to University of South Carolina, just because you can go to Benedict or Allen or Spelman and get these good government jobs, it does not mean you ain't black. All right. At the end of the day, you are still black in America and you need to understand that. And she said, I am afraid that baby boomers know how to survive this, but we actually don't know how to tell y'all what to do because this is worse than what we saw. And then she gave a framing of why she said it was worse. She said it was worse because if you were born in the 50s, the 40s, all you knew was community. You went to church with black people, you went to school with black people, you lived with black people, your teacher lived up the street from you, your pastor lived up the street from you. It was a community because segregation is what was required at the time. And even though segregation was quote unquote upended and we desegregated, most of our families, whether we live in Chicago, whether we live in Atlanta, where we live in DC, we still stayed in collective enclaves to ensure that our neighborhoods and our wards or our cities thrived with our people and our leadership. She said, I'm afraid now that the America that y'all want is something that's not real. And so you're not able to grapple with the reality that is here. But at the same time, boomers are not patient enough. Boomers are not being transparent enough, and they're not transferring enough information, enough strategy, enough tools on how you actually survive it, which is what they gave my parents, right? They gave Gen X, all right, you don't went to the PWI or you went to the HBCU, now you went to the PWI for grad school. I don't know how to tell you to be in corporate America, but I know how to tell you to survive around white people. I know how to tell you to play that game so that you can get home and still do what you do and be who you are without losing your identity in the process. I am concerned not for Gen Z. I've actually got a lot of optimism in Gen Z. They are smart, they are observant, they are quick-witted, they are asking questions, and they are resisting in a very good way. I am concerned for millennials. I am concerned for millennials because we are apathetic. And I am wondering, is Gen Z going to pick up that same apathy or will they remain resistant? What are you seeing? Again, this is what I'm seeing. It's not necessarily the truth, it's just a perspective. What are you seeing from that collective, this intergenerational menage a trois, if you will, of our politics?
So I teeter-totter on that weird line. I'm 96. I don't know if I'm millennial or Gen Z. I'm just in the middle. I,
Technically, you might make the cut, but you technically like Gen Z.
okay, I'm a millennial. I'm gonna claim it. I'm over there.
All right.
But I will say I would say I don't think that Gen Z will be I don't think they're going to adapt in that way. Gen Z have different tools to communicate, and they're also unapologetic because they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. At this point, we've had COVID. We were stuck in that. They've experienced a lot of things. My sister is 12, and she's experienced a little bit more than I have in a sense in her just 12 years of life. So I don't think that they will go under that umbrella. Working with youth in college, I just transitioned out last year. Working with them, we have a group of headstrong individuals. You cannot tell them what they are or not going to do. Same for my sister. I'm not going to tell her what she is and is not going to do. They're very vocal about their feelings. They're very vocal about what they think, and they should be. I was always told, or I know individuals have been told, stay in a child's place. Ain't no child's place. They're very vocal about what is going on. They know, and even if you don't tell them, they've seen it on social media already. So you have to explain it. I think for young organizers, I just wish that the wisdom piece of organizing was present more so than I'm telling you what you need to do. That's not necessarily how that's how we lose those gaps or that's how we build those gaps in terms of generations. That's why individuals don't communicate with each other, is because the wisdom is seen of I'm telling you what you need to do. And this environment that they're currently is totally different. Being a former teacher, that's not how school was for me. Like that's things are just completely different. And until we start adapting to the lines of communication that are currently present now, we're going to further lose Gen Z. But I don't think it's going to be in a way of they are going to adapt and also just be quiet. Like that's not going to be the thing. It's more so we're going to lose them in the sense of they're going off and doing things, and we're not able to say, "Hey, this is the blueprint. I'm just telling you what has and has not worked. Go with that." And I think a lot of them are also missing the historical aspect of a lot that's going on because one, I didn't know about Black history until I went to Spelman. That's a big gap. But now it's even bigger because I had a little bit of civics in high school. That's not even a thing. But also now we're going to the colleges and you're telling them to go to PWIs, but because it's more money, they may have more funding there, but also their history is being erased there, or their history is non-existent in those places, and they not understand that at some point your grandmother couldn't even apply to go to this school because of the racial implications that were currently going on. So until we are able to communicate in a way of I'm not trying to dictate what you do, I'm more so trying to help fuel what your movement is, we're going to lose Gen Z. But they are willing to listen. They
Yeah.
have the energy, they have the connections, they have the tools.
Yeah.
We just have to figure out how do we get the information to them to move with it.
Let me ask you this extension. Let me try to go back 10 years. Um, One thing I remember when you all were in college is that this group of college chapter presidents, Amari included, were some headstrong college chapter presidents. That one night when they were on a bus to be a part of the march in DC, they were at the hotel and we had a state meeting. And I had to get a little indignant. And I was, no more than 2 or 3 years their senior. And I'll never forget our advisor, Miss Brown. She pulled me aside and she said, "You do not make an impact on students by belittling them. You make an impact by affirming what you know is right, but helping them to see the gap to what you just said. And the only way you can help them see the gap is by being in conversation with them." And so, what would you tell the Gen X parent, the Gen X grandparent, boomer grandparent who is sitting at home with a 15, 16, 17-year old, but also sitting at home with a 10, a 6-year old and they're trying to figure out like how do I help this child understand? One, you got to be street smart. You got to be book smart and you got to be street smart, but it's not always your way or the highway. That there's a catch 22 here. That yes, I want you to be headstrong. I want you to be independent. I want you to think on your toes. I don't necessarily want you going with the group or the collective. I want you to make critical decisions. But if they're not getting that at school, how do you get help them to get it at home? And I know there's a ways we did it, right? I mean, we've been in this and you're in it now, mobilizing people, grown folk and young folk. What are some of the things you are seeing that works?
So I'm actually going to start within my own home.
Sure.
I was the type of kid that wanted to be Angela Davis for Halloween, and anything else. Like that was me. I was writing contracts because my mama had me messed up. But the thing is, I think she learned eventually. Let's talk it out. Let's have a conversation. So one thing is actually listening to listen and to hear, but also to give information back. It's a conversation. I think a lot of things we end up in a rift and a fight versus understanding I'm still learning and how do you just stop and listen and then react to have that conversation, but also exposure. um I saw someone says my child has never had a history lesson. African American Museum is here in DC. That's a field trip. That's a vacation to expose them to things. But I think the thing is, like I said, there's a rift because individuals are bumping heads versus having conversations and giving that wisdom in that way. There is a way to have a conversation and say, hey, I understand you want to do it this way, but let's just look at the consequences and let's look at the scenarios. My dad was big on saying, make good decisions. And that's just all you just give them the agency to make that decision. Yes, something may go wrong. That's a consequence, but that's also a learning lesson. It's not a moment to say I told you so, but it's more so the time to say let's stop. You wanted to do this. I told you this may happen. It did happen. Let's actually have an active conversation about what those consequences are and actually a plan about that because I think that's one thing that's missing. I never really had a conversation about what I did wrong. I just know I did something wrong, and then now all of a sudden I'm going to continuously rebel because you didn't just give me an understanding of, what happened. Slow down. Let's break it down. I think that's why me and my siblings have great relationships. It's not more so I told you so, is I'm slowing down and listening to what you're saying. I'm helping you develop that plan, and we're actually having a conversation versus me telling you, oh, you wrong, and this is why you wrong, and this is why I'm right, and I've been living longer than you. Okay, you have. You got that. You did. You beat me in the years, but also you have some wisdom as well too. And there's also some different circumstances. Sometimes you have to just stop, listen, and actually hear what is being said and share that wisdom in that way. I've seen a lot of head butting because no one is listening. No one understands what's really going on. Just sometimes you have to listen to actually hear what's going on. And I guarantee you'll get across more to the youth than you ever will. I think a lot of our youth from youth in college confide in me about their decisions because it's not me saying, nah, you're not gonna do that. It's me saying, okay, I was in your shoes at one point. This happened, and this happened. Do you want that to happen? No. Okay, great. So let's look at this route. It's breaking things down and talking to them on a level to where they'll actually understand why you're saying. I think that's the thing. We don't
Yeah.
often want to give our why. It's I said so because I said so. Okay, if you said that, cool. I'm gonna go do what I want to do anyway. What you said is what you said, and we ain't gonna have no other conversation. Cool. That's on you. But that's why individuals rebel. It's because it's I said what I said versus listening to actually hear to move forward and build a common conversation. You want your youth to eventually grow up to be able to compromise or actually have conversation, build those skills in the workplace, at school. It starts at home. It doesn't start when they're already in that environment. It starts at home with you.
Yeah. I laughed because one of the things that we never negotiated in our house, my parents or my grandparents, but they did let us live with our decisions. Now I can't give them that question, that credit of saying, all right, to your point, if you want to do this, you got to live with it. So there's no quitting because it gets hard, and there's no backing away because it doesn't go the way you think it should go. You got to see this thing through. You got to see it out. And at the end of it, if you don't want to do it anymore, you don't have to do it anymore. If you don't want to go back, you don't have to go back. But you need to stick it through to learn the lesson. And I think that is something that I would encourage um, those who are mentoring young people, parents of this generation. There is something that is built in a young person when you tell them, no, you cannot quit. I am not going to allow you to quit. You made the decision to partake in this and to participate in it, and you need to see it through. Now, when you get to the end of it, if you don't want to do it anymore, that's fine. Let's have a conversation about why you didn't like it, why it was a little rougher than you thought it was. And parents, I say this at Kimball all the time, be transparent about your experiences, okay? Your children know you had a life before you became their parent or their grandparent or their mentor. And this is not to say expose all your business, but it is to say be relatable. This is a generation that is seeking relatability. Yes, they want discipline and structure. Who doesn't? Everybody wants a little bit of that in their life, but they want relatability. They want to know, hey, all right, I'm gonna be transparent, Pastor, in Kenwood United Church of Christ. Y'all know marijuana is legal in the city of Chicago and in the state of Illinois. Stop lying to these children like you didn't smoke some weed, quote unquote, some reefer when you were in college and almost didn't get caught or did get caught in high school. The difference is the environment you grew up in protected you from the major consequences that other folk did get caught up in, is what Samuel DeWitt Proctor calls the scratch line. Some of us were above the scratch line, some of us were below the scratch line, and everybody's really trying to get to the scratch line. And if you can get above it, that's great. And majority of our folk are below the scratch line. And so, how do we, this is the question you should kind of ask yourself, how do I ensure my child, my grandchild, my niece, my nephew, whomever, is at or above that scratch line by virtue of what I'm able to give them? Now, I want to kind of wrap us up in this because this all still goes about how we're surviving this current moment, right? I mean, this is still all about that. Um, the last thing we talked about on Sunday in Sunday's message was being a practitioner and not a performer. And I told y'all the one thing that makes me itch more than anything else are arrogant people, self-indignant, righteous Negroes who will make observations, who will talk down about people and talk bad about the policies and the priorities and the party and the community and are not practicing anything that they speak. So, Amari, to close us out, what are some practical steps we can take to shift us from being social media performers and home conversation performers to actual practitioners and participants in what little bit of democracy we have left at this moment?
Individuals say all the time, I voted. That's great. We needed that. But how many people did you pull to the polls with you? How many people did you pull to that conversation, this conversation? How many times did you share this link in your family group chats to make sure individuals actually came and got this information? That's what we're kind of missing. Remembering that this is a community piece of it. Um, yes, you casted your ballot, but did you door knock? Did you do phone banking? Did you do text messages? Did you make sure that you just did that extra push to also make sure that other individuals actually understood and did as well? I think when it comes to being a practitioner, it means that you're actually practicing that piece. So that means I'm bringing individuals along with me. I'm actually preaching what I said. Oh yeah, I'm active in the community. Oh yeah, I shared this post. Great. But how many people did you really bring along with you in that piece? Community activism is something, or relational organizing is something that we do every day. At work, you're relational organizing. When you are working in the churches, you're at the relational organizing. When you're at a restaurant, that's relational organizing. It's a way for you to have some sort of conversation in some way. No, I'm not telling you to just walk up to somebody. Did you know that healthcare is? That's not how that happens. The question is, you kind of pose it. What have you done in the last few years to make sure that your agency is actually being expressed? What have you done in the last few years to make sure that your voice is actually heard? Yes, in your own home, things may be okay, but on the outside, things are on fire. Can you help us get the things out of fire? Because they're going down. And understanding that even though it may not be happening, what happens right now is DC may not be happening in Illinois, better believe it's coming. It may not be happening in Baltimore. Better believe it's coming. So it's not a time for us just to be silent because right now my household is cool. That's not the thing. Your neighbor is suffering. Their house is on fire. Your coworker is suffering. Their house is on fire. Individuals are losing resources that they need on the daily. So I'm not plugging, but I'm plugging NAACP membership. If you want to join the fight in helping us, every year we do SMS. Every year we do phone banking. Every year we do door knocking. And we're making sure that we're doing even bigger, a larger scale for 2026. Be a practitioner by actually doing. Take your children to the voting polls with you on election day so they see what the process looks like. Make sure that you're taking your parents with you. Take your friends, your coworkers, your neighbors. Ask them, are they registered to vote? Making sure that you're having that conversation so individuals know how they express their agency is through action. And the action doesn't just mean reposting something on Facebook or just dropping this dime here. Actively being a practitioner within this work means that you're understanding that the issues that impact individuals are on the front line. We need to make sure that we're giving them to them in an easy way to make sure they're actually able to understand what's going on and how it impacts them, even though their house may not be fired at this moment. So my thing is Make sure that when you're activating, you're actually doing an action and it actually has an impact on individuals. And I'm not saying that you have to watch the metrics on it, but when you're actually having communications or you're communicating with individuals, check for understanding, but also listen. It's not just you just spewing information at them. You have to listen. Ask a simple question, a general question to get the thing out there, but listen to what their concerns are, what actually impacts them on the daily, and give them that resource or that support or that little tidbit of what's going on, but also help them understand what their agency is to actually change that thing. The problem is we're not sending people down the road of change. We're just kind of soaking in what's currently going on. This is not the time to soak. If anything, it's our time to activate because now more than ever, our lives depend on this. Our daily depends on us doing something essentially, or especially voting.
Thank you. Are there any questions for those of you who are watching us tonight? Any questions or comments? See, it's Donna Phillips, awesome, very informative. Nikita, priorities always first, communication. Malakisha, I know you got that 16-year-old at home with you, and be patient with her. She'll be all right. Just be patient with her.
Listen, just talk, listen and talk. It's understanding that.
Malik, I'm gonna take a moment of personal privilege. Malakisha is my cousin, and her little girl is my little cousin, and she cracked me up because I don't understand why Gen Z wears sweatsuits when it's 90 degrees outside.
I know it's
And
hot.
she had we were joking about that. Uh, but that's one of those things of being patient and trying to understand the generation. Mara, we thank you for being with us tonight. Kenwood, as I always encourage you, be a practitioner. Uh, we have been reminded again tonight, as we have been every Wednesday this month. You got to share what we're doing. You got to get out and have conversation with people. Reverend Sierra told us at the beginning of the month, get 10 people engaged and involved in this space, in this work of what we're doing and what is necessary around educating and amplifying the priorities in the moment. Reverend Gill told us last week that there is power in our convening and collective community. And Amari has reminded us tonight of what it is to do the work of being a practitioner and participating, but also not just observing, being in conversation, being in relationship, sharing your wisdom with other people. So thank you again, Amari. Listen, I am a member. I'm still a member of the NAACP. Now, whether I show up to stuff is a whole nother.
We're
Don't
gonna
do
call
that.
you,
Don't
sis.
do that. Don't do that.
We're gonna call
Whether I show up to stuff is it's a little bit different than it used to be. But I want to encourage each of you for real to be a member of the NAACP. And I see some of our members on here who have children, grandchildren. There is no better civic organization for a child to be a part of than the NAACP. From just learning basic civics and history, but also with the opportunity to serve in leadership and get various experiences throughout the organization at the local, state, and national level. So if you have young people, children, young adults at home, get them a membership. What does it cost?
$10. $10 every year.
About $10, y'all. So uh, if we have 10 children at Kenwood that want to join the NAACP, I will pay the $100 for them to be members of the NAACP. Okay, so I will do that. And I hope you as the parents, you will be a member or grandparents be a member too. Okay. And I'm serious about that. I will pay the $100 for those 10 children to be members of the NAACP. Okay. Y'all be safe. Y'all take care of yourselves. Turn off the news, turn it off. Do like I did the other night. I put on some Maze and Frankie Beverly. I put my record on. I cleaned up my house, had a good time, and went to bed. Do something that gives you joy and some peace tonight. Amari, take care of yourself and be safe. Now, as we get ready to go, let's depart with a word of prayer. Lord, we thank you for this space in this place tonight, for what has been shared, for all that Amari has poured out and given to us, how she has educated us and equipped us and empowered us. Protect her and strengthen her and give her all that is needed as she continues to do this work through the NAACP. Bless the congregation of Kenwood that is in Chicago and those who are part of our congregation from around this country. Protect them from evil, bind the hand of the enemy, and ensure that your children have every need met this week and in the days to come. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. All right, Kenwood. See y'all Sunday. Be blessed.